and recruit a competitive workforce. Saw, again, some data that came out very recently from a salary survey through the Mid-America Regional Council. This is the Regional Council of Governments for the 9-county area. They surveyed 29 different cities and asked them what they were planning to do as far as wage increases in the next fiscal year. Of those 29 respondents, 79% are planning to give raises of at least 2% or more. There were only a few respondents who were planning to give less than 2%. So again, if we want to think of our peers and our competition being primarily here within this region, that 2% needs to be the minimum baseline that we're trying to get to every year, and that's why I built that into the forecast so that we can try to accommodate that.
Is that 82% up there? Does that include the retirees too? Is that just?
Yeah, that is all of the insurance costs, all of that as well. So we also then have the 1% cost built in for just general operating expenses, cost of doing business, raises in consumer price index, things like that. Okay, so here's the moneymaker slide. This is what the 5-year model is telling you. The dashed red line is that 16% reserve balance target that through the council's adopted financial policies we are trying to get the general fund to. You can see that we are below that right now, but certainly working to try to get there over the next several of years. In order to do that, we're going to have to continue to be very responsible with our expenditures while also, not being penny wise and pound foolish. I don't believe we can necessarily cut our way to prosperity. That leads me to say that we need to continue to work on our revenue picture, opportunities to bring in additional businesses, to help raise the median income, all the things you've heard from the prior speakers here this evening. Right now, our fund balance, we are projecting that to raise this year from 5.3 million to 6.1, raise a little bit more in the out years, but then as some of those cost increases come in and some of those traditional revenue streams continue to decline, without additional changes, you can tell where that fund balance number would start to decline. So that is the challenge that is before us, but this now, as we begin to start thinking about developing our submitted budget that we will bring to the council in May, this is the backdrop that we are working against and the opportunities that we have before us. And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
I have one, Mr. City Manager. What if the year ended today? What kind of shortfall will we have?
Right now, we are trending somewhat favorably because of that better than expected sales tax revenue number. The budget that the council adopted this past June for the fiscal year that started July 1st had a $1.55 million contingency that we informally referred to as our COVID contingency. Right now, the biggest adversary, if you will, that I'm seeing is the cost of our health insurance plan. There's been some pretty substantial claims made against that this year. We're trying to monitor if that was sort of a one-time blip or if that was a trend that's coming towards us. So we might have to draw down against that $1.55 million to help prop up our Stay Well Fund. But absent that, I see us adding to the fund balance and finishing with a net gain this year as we stand here on November the 9th.
Yeah. Are we accounting for the CARES Act money that's come through our city too?
We are.
How much has that been?
We received a total of $6.95 million. $2.2 million of that was again used for the utility assistance. The balance of that we have been using for those unplanned, unbudgeted expenditures like sick leave costs, quarantining costs for our workforce, the technology upgrades that are coming. So around $4 million would be a good number to say that is helping with our budgetary picture this year.
So without that money, we would be bad.
Yes, sir. We would be sunk.
So we still have that $12.5 million sitting in reserves. Is that right? That we approved as a loan or whatever we called that before I arrived.
Yeah.
From
so,
IPL.
Yeah. it was about $25 million. The council passed an ordinance or a resolution a few months ago that returned that 12 and a half of that, which was 50%, said to hold on to the balance of that through the end of this calendar year and get a better snapshot of where we were at the midpoint of the fiscal year. That's still sitting there. The city has not drawn down on that line of credit, if you will. And as we stand here today, about 45 days to the end of the calendar year, I'm not anticipating making a recommendation to draw down upon that.
So we'll be prepared to give it back come first of the year?
That's going to, absent the bottom just totally dropping out in the next 45 days, that's going to be my recommendation.
Well, that's good news. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Richie?
Our financial policies, Mr. City Manager, says that if we don't see our making the target, we have to have a plan in place to make the target. And to me, that means we either have to cut our expenses or increase our revenue. Now, I can hope till the cows come home that I'm going to increase my revenue, but that's not a plan.
Right.
And so the only plan I see is to cut expenses. Are we looking at anything to actually cut specific expenses according to our financial policies that we have to do in order to meet our target? And it's
Yeah.
a hard question, I know, and I'm not
Sure.
happy talking about it.
Right.
But it has to be talked about.
Yeah, here's the reality, that big bar behind me, and that's the 83% of your budget that is tied up in salary and benefit costs. I'm very proud of the fact that when other organizations last spring were doing furloughs and layoffs, this city did not, and I think that's very hard to come back from, and I'm pleased that we didn't. We've tried to bring several recommendations the last few years to the council to shrink the organization, to combine departments, to look for those efficiencies. I'm always evaluating the impact of those decisions to see where they're successful and where maybe we need to take another look. I think some cases it's worked. In other cases, I think we need to continue to reassess those opportunities to have the best service delivery possible. But at the end of the day, the plan that I would recommend to the council is going to be how do we continue to grow the revenue, because we're getting, I know people are tired of hearing me say that, but we're getting to the point where we don't have rabbits to pull out of hats anymore. We don't have.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
We don't have many rabbits left to pull out of the hat anymore. And that's just a really sad reality that absent finding ways to continue growing revenue, there's not many other places to go.
Other than cut expenses.
And you can tell where our biggest expenses are.
Can I ask a question off of, are you finished? I'm sorry, Councilmember. Just a question. I think her, Councilmember DeLucci's concern is valid. I mean, we're still in a lockdown condition here, right? So during the pandemic, we were given $6 million. Where are we going to find that next year? Because it looks like we're going to continue this course for a while. How are we going to continue to grow revenue in a city that has been crippled economically? I mean, I hope you find a bigger hat.
Or more rabbits.
More rabbits, yeah, because we're definitely going to be in a situation here.
Yeah, we are.
And we don't need to be addressing this when we're there.
No. And council member, in the interest of full transparency, I think I ought to make sure, my mind gets locked into thinking about that $6.9 million of CARES Act funds. There were lots of places that CARES Act dollars got allocated. We received I think it was $1.2 million from the Kansas City Area Transit Authority that saved our bacon
Saved
on
our
the
bus.
transit. Otherwise, the proposal was on the table to reduce that bus service. That was one-time money as well, too. So, yes, we were very grateful that we got that, but I don't think these one-time gimmicks are necessarily the structural balance this council is looking for.
Well, and I appreciate your transparency on that. So, but I hope we can continue this discussion.
Yes.
And when you find the rabbits in the hat, let us know.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, go ahead.
So, as Councilwoman DeLucy mentioned, either cut revenue or we find increased revenue. Well, we've had some good policies, some good discussions with our EDC on how we can help go from greenfield development to small business development, and that's going to be a key. Unfortunately, the whole country / world's in a lockdown. A lot of our small business owners have made that decision to shutter to a large degree, that they follow the numbers that are trending nationally and regionally, that they've chose to do that for their employee safety, for their customer safety, and for the fact that most people wouldn't come out even if we were completely open. So there was a lot of discussion with that. But we're not going to be in this lockdown forever, hopefully, knock on wood. So how do we come out of it stronger, more viable, and ready to take in? City of Independence, we have the greenfield development possible. It's out there. JD and Jody, the group, they're working on that to bring that in. Other council members are bringing that in. What else do we have here that can help increase the revenue? We have a great historic town, a great historic revenue stream that we can bring tourism in here, bring regional individuals that will come here and stay here. INDEPEWhat, I believe they're going to do a presentation the first part of December. Michael Baxter with INDEPEWhat Arts talking about how they are moving forward in INDEPEWhat despite the COVID and their fundraising efforts, and when they get that open, what type of vitality that will bring. Met with JD, we went to Pedro and talked to them how we can work with the capital improvement projects that are moving forward on 24 Highway to help develop that. These are more further out into the future, but these are tax revenue streams. This is how we increase our tax revenue, by enhancing our square, bringing the tourism into our town, by having a place ready to go when we are opened up, that we can have that destination of pride and be able to bring that in. The Truman Library just finished up or finishing up a $32 million redevelopment of their facility. That's going to bring in a ton of people in here. So tourism is where we need to begin to focus what we have here now. That's a good start. Wafer legislation that we were talking about, that has got to get pushed through Jeff City, and I would open up my time and ability to get into what in front of a committee down there in Jeff City to speak in favor for that. That's where our future of our sales tax revenue is coming from. The old days when I was on the council in '96, that's gone. We're into the future now here with internet sales tax, so that's the future. I'd be more than happy to speak in favor of in Jeff City to help get that pushed through wherever you think I need to be fit. So we've got to be able to think cautiously, but we've got to be able to think out of the box. How we can increase these revenue dollars. And also when the opportunity comes, when we have development, that we can leverage those dollars, that we're not spending money out of our general revenue sources, as you can see here, but there's federal dollars that we can leverage. If we can get twice as much money, 3 times as much money for every dollar we put in, we need to grab that. I mean, so there's other ways that we can tackle this animal, and I appreciate your creativity. And again, thanks to the EDC for their future work and what they're looking to try to help increase those revenues. So thank you.
Yeah, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. I'll wrap it up by saying this, if it's okay real quick. We've done a lot, all right? I'm really proud of being able to work with this council to, consolidate our services, look for those opportunities to get efficient, to partner with good people like Mr. Sorensen to help address our long-term insurance obligations. That's when I say the rabbit's out of hat. Those are the changes that we've made. But the reality is, when we walk out of here tonight, we walk into a zip code where the median household income is $37,000 and 21% of the people live below the federal poverty line. So the things you've talked about tonight, like workforce training and tourism and the opportunities to have better housing quality, those are the things that long-term are going to be the shot in the arm. Because I don't think continuing to cut exclusively is going to be in the best interest of raising all those ships. So we look forward to bringing that plan to you and working with you over the next several months and years to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and introduce the last presentation from right here. And that is none other than Tom Scannell, who's here to speak on the ordinance that had your first reading last Monday night, have a second reading next Monday night, the abandoned registry program. I'll let Tom give a quick overview of that. Mr. Scannell.
I'm a little bit shorter than Zach. Let me Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. As Zach said, my name is Tom Scannell, and I'm the Community Development Director. And giving you a presentation on the Vacant Structure Registry Maintenance Program. So, but first I want to give you an overview of some of our existing codes and programs that we have that is looking to address blight, code issues, and also the quality of life. As many of you know, we have a property maintenance code. This is dealing with the tall grass, weeds, trash, cars parked in the grass, NOVs, which is non-operable vehicles. We also have our dangerous building code and our unsafe building code. And those are buildings that, as the dangerous name leads to, it's a structure that is a dangerous situation for public health, and the unsafe building, that is dealing with buildings that tend to have clutter and unsafe conditions. And a few years ago, back in 2016, the city adopted the Rental Ready program. That is a program getting the rental properties registered and having those units inspected every other year. So I want to show this chart here. This chart shows something that we are concerned about. So the top line, the blue line, is the number of violations that we receive each month. So during our busy season, you can see we kind of peak out, and then as it cools down in September and October, our numbers start to go down. The red line is the abatements that have been ordered. Typically, this would follow our violation line, but as you can see, it continues to go up. So that is one concern. This chart here kind of shows our dangerous building trends. The top line, the blue line, is the number of dangerous building cases that we have right now. Just to let you know, in September, which was the last time that we completed our monthly report, we had 220 dangerous building cases. Compare that to 2019, we had 135 dangerous building cases. So you kind of see that our code enforcement activity and our dangerous building trends are kind of going in the wrong direction. A few other trends that we are seeing is, so I kind of talked about the dangerous buildings and unsafe buildings. Those we know about. The other ones that we run into issues with are those vacant residential and commercial buildings that we get the occasional complaint on, but we don't really have, but they don't meet the unsafe or the dangerous criteria, so they cannot be classified as such. We have also seen this year the number of property owners who are basically relying on the city to be their landscaper. They found that having the neighbors call in 3, 4, 5 times a year and the city go out and abate the situation, meaning mow the grass, pick up the trash, is far cheaper than having them have a property manager or someone or a company providing that service. And finally, another trend that we've seen is more and more investors looking at residential properties who have open code violations for longer than 6 months. That's a concern to us. So what are some issues tied to vacant structures? Well, first off, they're unsightly and they have a negative impact on the community. They also negatively affect the property values where those are located, in neighborhoods along the corridors. They can also be places where we have infestations of rodents and insects. But also during the winter months, they provide shelter to individuals who are either up to no good or don't have shelter. And then during the colder months, fires they start a fire and then there's a fire at that structure. So that creates another need for service. So Some of the challenges that we have, as the city manager has mentioned, we have limited resources to deal with these issues. We have limited amount of money to abate these properties, and we have limited amount of money to demolish these structures. We're using our legal mechanisms, but these have been too slow or ineffective to get the desired outcomes. We want to see these buildings occupied and vibrant. Although we have had a few successes along the way where we've been able to get those vacant buildings back into good use, but our number of properties that we need to address keeps increasing. So, as a result, staff had looked at what other cities are doing to address this situation, and is proposing a vacant structure and registry program. And this is a program that would apply to residential, multifamily, commercial office, and industrial structures. The way that this program is tailored is any unsafe or dangerous building would automatically apply. They're going to have to register their structure into this program. Multifamily residential, where more than 80% of the units are unoccupied, they would have to register their structures. Commercial office or industrial with more than 50% of their space that's unoccupied, they would have to register. And as well as any residential structure that hasn't been occupied longer than 6 months. So registration is the first component of this program. With this, we are getting the contact information of all the owners associated with the property. But most importantly, we are getting the contact information for a local representative within 50 miles of Independence. As part of that registration, we are getting a plan that includes the timeline for regular maintenance, how they intend to keep the building weather tight and keep people out of there. We're also getting a list of authorized individuals who can be present in that building. And importantly, and this is important to the police department, is that we're getting that MOU that allows the police to arrest anyone who is not authorized to be in that building. The registration, there is a registration fee. It's kind of a tiered structure. So for single family and duplexes, it's $350 for every 6 months, and that increases up to $500 after the structure has been vacant for 2 years. And then after 3 years, it starts to go monthly. Multifamily and commercial starts at $500 every 6 months and then goes up from there. So what's going to happen as part of this program is there would be regular proactive inspections of these properties to ensure compliance with the regulations. And that's the second component of this program. So the properties have to comply with our property maintenance code, peeling paint, weeds, non-operable vehicles, all of those things that is governed by the property maintenance code, they have to abide by that. If there's dead landscaping on the property, they have to replace that in accordance with the UDO. If they happen to have any dumpsters or signage, they either have to, they'll have to remove the dumpster or screen that per our ordinances. Signs, they have to remove those. And importantly, what we want to ensure is that they keep all fire protection systems intact. And this is really going to be on the commercial side, but without those, if there does happen, if someone does get in there and there is a fire, without having that fire protection system, the building could be lost to a fire. Also, the building has to be maintained in a weather-tight and secure manner. So what this means is they board that up, broken windows are replaced. The ordinance does go into talking about that after the doors and windows are boarded up for 6 months, they have to replace those. They cannot just keep those boarded up. Lastly, this ordinance still allows us to pursue any abatement, so whether that's tall grass, weeds, trash, or if we need to demolish the building, we still reserve the right to do that. On the good case where the building is going to be reused, which is our goal, if they haven't paid any fees or fines or anything like that, all those have to be paid before a building permit is issued or before they occupy that structure. And any fee that is not paid, this ordinance does give us the ability to put a lien on that property, much like what we do for dangerous buildings and our code enforcement abatements. So that's kind of an overview of the program, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions?
I do. Tom, I just wonder if the city has ever looked at actually suing the owner of the property versus putting a lien against the property. For example, when we tear down a house and it costs us $8,000 or $10,000, as I understand it, we pay for that, and we have a lien on the property, and then, you know, the property goes on over to the land trust, and the land trust tries to dump it, and they finally get a buyer at the courthouse steps, and the buyer is willing to pay $2,000, but only so long as we forgive the lien. And as a result, we never get paid. And so I was just so curious, because I would think that we could do some kind of program where we actually sue the owner of the property for money to get his money to tear down that property. Is that at all possible, or does that violate some kind of statute that I don't know about? If anybody can answer that.
I know one city to our west is able to do that, Councilwoman. I think we probably need to check our statutory authority to make sure that we're on the same footing with them.
Kansas City, is that who does it?
That is correct. So, and I think it is one of those wonky things where some of you may be familiar with state statute where it describes a city of a certain size with certain geographical features, but it's describing Kansas City. I need to double check this, and I will with Mr. Mayfield, the legislative authority, but that may be something we want to add to our legislative portfolio as well to make sure
I
we've
think
got that
that
same
would be
authority.
money well spent. I really do. If you could report back to us in the next month or two.
Certainly.
Mr. City Manager, because that to me is more effective than some of these other things we're looking at.
Well, Miss Councilwoman DeLucy, having practiced some in lien enforcement and small lawsuits like this, there's definitely a cost-benefit analysis that goes along with it, because you can sue somebody all day long, but collectability has become a real important part of whether or not you file suit. But certainly, so long as a municipality is allowed to do it, or our municipality is, it's an option.
And as long as we're talking about changing the rules. I remember having a conversation, Tom, with you a couple years ago, and I was complaining about code enforcement and how long it seemed to take and how many times do people have to call, et cetera, et cetera. And it was explained to me a few years ago that we have a timeline that, like, a person has grass that grows and it gets too long, and so a neighbor complains, so we send out a letter, and then we send a person out to look, and then we send a notice out, and then we finally mow it, and then the grass grows again, and it's not mowed, and basically so much time passes that it's like it's a brand-new code violation, that we don't double up. Like, to me, 3 times and you're out. I mean, we should really get heavy on those fines. And is that simply a policy we have, or is that a law that we have to follow?
That is a law that we have to follow, and it was 2016 with Senate Bill 5.
Oh, my goodness, that again.
That took that power away from us. We had,
Wow.
previously, we had that 3 strikes, and we were out there immediately. But with Senate Bill 5, it mandates the process, the due process that we have to follow, and then it also mandates the maximum fine that the municipal court can charge for each one of those. And it's not until the 4th violation, the fourth time before municipal court, that it gets up to $450,
Okay,
which is a very slow and arduous process.
and we can't shorten the time between the hearing and things of that nature to move it?
Unfortunately, we can't. That is tied in that Senate Bill 5.
Thank you.
Tom, Mr. City Manager, I really like this. I've been after this for years. I can't stand when these people, the Wendy's and et cetera, just leave in vacant building for years and years. And I hope that we can get some more teeth in this. I know we have a lot of buildings out south here that we've been putting up with for years, and maybe they'll react now, hopefully.
I think what this gives us is another tool in the toolbox, and hopefully the financial fees of this will get people to see that, hey, I need to do something with this. I cannot just sit on this and take the write-off. I need to do something with this.
Yeah, there's a few houses over here that I've complained about that's had a tarp. They changed out the tarp instead of the roof, and it's been going on for about 25 years. But hopefully this will get some attention.
Indeed.
I agree. I think it's time we send a message. That's good. Yep.
That's it. That'll move us to staff reports. Madam City Clerk.
Thank you. Tourism Commission has a vacancy. Recommendation has been made to appoint Nancy Kerr to the Tourism Commission. If there's no objections, we'll get a resolution added at the next meeting.
Go ahead. Put on the next one.
Okay. Public Safety Sales Tax Oversight Committee has a vacancy. Recommendation has been made to appoint Aaron Boatwright. This is an individual council appointment by Councilmember DeLucy. If there's no objections, we'll get a resolution added to the next regular meeting.
No objections.
Thank you. And then finally, staff is looking at seeking direction from the council regarding scheduling boards and commissions. Due to the pandemic, we've had a lot of scheduling issues. So what we're looking to do is to schedule these boards and commissions meetings for the next 6 months in order to get everything streamlined. So if there's no objections, my department will start working on that immediately.
No objections.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Meeting's adjourned.